Okay, so we are back for more because I can't get enough of this stuff. Today, I want to do test 7 on the College Board BlueBook app. My hope is to do the whole thing today. I'm going to post it in 2 parts, though. I'm going to do the reading and writing right now. Then I have to go to work, and then I'm going to do the math later this evening, I hope. Um, Either way, I should have these videos up and available for people to review and do practice with me. The idea of these videos is that you will do the test along with me, either in your own app or watching along. And I'm going to explain the steps that I'm doing. I'm going to guide through the process of reading the questions, explaining how I'm answering them, and why the logic of the answers works the way they work. I've never seen test 7. This is going to be my fresh take at it. I'm a professional tutor. I have been tutoring the SAT for more than 13 years and have coached several thousand students over that decade. Um, Many of my students are 1600 earners. Many more are 1500 plus. So I think I'm pretty good at it, and the advice that I give is fairly sound. So let's go ahead and dive right in, and I'm going to go ahead and hit next. It's preparing, of course. Don't care about that. Close that right away. All right, first questions are always going to be words in context. Let's go ahead and read. The best way to approach these things is to read the question, think about your own word, and see which one fits best. Botanist Al Kowalski, never worry about names. They're not going to be there. You're not offending anybody if you say it wrong. The botanist has pointed out that maple trees already thrive in a wide variety of climates and thus may something changes in climate better than some other tree species do. Okay, there's going to be a parallel in the next sentence, probably. The alterations maples undergo. That word alterations is a hint, I think. May undergo in response to climate change. Change in climate are likely to be relatively small and easily achieved. So these are adaptable trees. The maple trees already thrive in a wide variety of climates, so when climate changes, they adapt quickly. So I've already said the word several times, and I think adapt is going to be our best, easiest answer. This one gives us the underlined word. They want us to do the opposite. They give us the word, and now we need to pick a synonym or interpret it. Don't worry about the introduction. Maybe this bit describes being on a boat. The water was so clear that it was almost invisible, obviously see-through, transparent. Um, Recently observed gamma ray burst, GRB, whatever, lasted for 200 seconds for a burst generated by the meager merger of neutron stars. Okay, the parallel needs to be in the next sentence. Bursts caused by neutron mergers typically last fewer than 2 seconds. So this was significantly longer than the typical 2 seconds versus 200. So I'm going to go with an oddity. Incident may be okay, but it doesn't have the connotation of being unusual or strange. Reprieve is something that is like a relief from a burden, and that's clearly not implied here. And it could be a coincidence, but again, that's not the implication here. They want to emphasize that it's unusual. That's clearly what they're going for there. United States sent Benjamin Franklin to France to try to win the country's support of the United States' fight for independence from Great Britain. Franklin was very popular in France, especially with the ladies, if you know your history. This popularity, um, this riz, if you will, surely helped him to convince France to assist the United States. Yes. I'm going to go with esteem, respect. Um, yeah. He may have been characterized as thoughtful or controversial or sincere by people, but people respected him, is the point. All right, that's how you do words in context. Now we've got, um, let's see, this text structure and purpose question. Whenever you see an underlined, read the whole sentence, the whole paragraph, but situate that sentence within the context. In the 1950s, scientists didn't know much about the ocean floor. Many scientists at the time believed that the ocean floor was mostly flat, so this is the previous belief in the 1950s and before. Maybe a contrast is coming. Geologist Mary Tharp and her research partner Bruce whatever proved that proved this idea wrong. Yep, contrast. Using sonar data, these guys showed that the floor was filled with canyons, mountains, valleys, naturally. All right. So this sentence serves to give us the previous understanding that the next sentence contradicts. Scientific belief that Tharp and Hezine showed to be wrong? Yes. Describe the design? No. Emphasize disagreement? No. Presents data to support a claim? No. It's not presenting data. It's not a disagreement between the two researchers. It's a disagreement between their conclusion and the old thinking. Be careful. Same thing, underlined sentence, situated within the context. In the early days of television, 1940s, many people thought the U.S. television programs would rely on financial support of ad agencies, commercial sponsors, much like radio. Okay, so this is a previous belief kind of thing again. Advertisers hesitated to jump into a new space, particularly at a time when the manufacturing of new television sets was stalled due to the U.S. involvement in World War II. Okay, so the U.S. television advertisers were hesitant to go into television because of the manufacturing. That's the meaning of the underlined sentence. Broadcasters like NBC needed to persuade advertisers to support the program despite not knowing whether there would be a robust television audience. Yes, it's a new thing. It was risk, and they needed to be convinced. Compares the beginnings of radio. No, they mention radio here, but not in the underlined portion. We need to answer the underlined portion. Identify a specific reason behind the advertised hesitance. Yes. Why were they hesitant? Because TVs weren't being manufactured as quickly as they wanted them to be. How broadcasters attempted to convince them. No, the paragraph tells us that they needed to convince them. It does not tell us how they convinced them, especially not the underlined part. Why type of television programming was popular? Certainly not. Pteropods the P is silent, are small swimming snails with thin, delicate calcium carbonate shells. These animals are. This is going to be a central ideas and details question, by the by, because I glanced over here and saw the main purpose. Or maybe it's text structure purpose again, but whatever, you treat it the same. Read it, summarize it, answer accordingly. They give us the definition of what this pteropod snail is. These animals are thought to be especially vulnerable to ocean acidification due to calcium carbonate susceptibility to solution at lower pH values. Okay, so they are susceptible to this oceans becoming acidic. Victoria Peck and colleagues recently found that the periostracum coating prevents the dissolution when intact. So they have a coating that protects them from acid. The team was surprised to discover that even when the shell, like the protection was breached, pteropods can still mitigate damage or reduce the damage by rebuilding the shell wall. Cool. So they have defenses against acid in the ocean. Call attention to research biomechanisms that improve pteropod survival rates. I like A. Discuss conclusion drawn in a study of calcium carbonate's role in protecting. No, it's not just about calcium carbonate. That is a part of it, but that is not the protective thing. It was these other things, the periostracum. To address some of the ways ocean acidification has altered the behavior, their behavior has not altered. They've always done this. To present findings suggest that a concern about the effects of ocean acidification may be unwarranted. No, the concerns are warranted. They're still affected, but they have natural defenses. Cross-text connections. Read the question first, always, and through the lens of the question, read the text. How would author text 2 respond to what some researchers contend in text 1? So read text 2 first, and then read the line that they're responding to. Any plausible claim about the inception of tectonic movement must rest upon empirical evidence from the geological record. Okay, any claims about tectonics must be evidenced. This researcher and his team, skip the name, the researcher and his team analyzed the geochemistry of zircon crystals to gain insight into the chemical composition of the magma from which crystals formed, and based on that data, compellingly argue that plate tectonics may have been occurring as early as 4.2 billion years ago. Okay, so that person's very much a data geek. They want the evidence. So some researchers contend. What do they contend? Some researchers contend that tectonic movements began around 3 billion years ago. often noting that computer models reverse mantle temperature. So they would disagree with the computer models. Just because a computer model shows it does not mean that the geological record of Earth actually did that. Just because it's plausible doesn't mean it did. We need evidence. This guy's an evidence hound. Suggesting the temperature of Earth's mantle 3 billion years ago was likely insufficient. No. Distinguishing between computer models that reliably predict the onset and those that do not. That's tempting. But it doesn't say models versus evidence. That's kind of where I think this is going, indicating the computer models of Earth's mantle temperature are still being improved, such that new models tend to be much more reliable. No, that's models against models. More definitive form of evidence than the computer model suggests a different timeline. Yes, evidence versus model. That's where that guy wants to go with it. And I encourage you to pause and read this stuff more carefully than I am. When you're doing your practice tests, feel free to do them with extended time if it helps. Scientists discovered an immense aggregation, so statement about M. robustus in the octopus garden is best supported by the text. Sorry, I'm speeding up because I don't want to run out of time. Okay, scientists discovered an immense aggregation of this thing, pearl octopuses along hydrothermal vent. So they found these guys along a vent at this depth. Water temperatures named the octopus garden get warm, much warmer than the typical ocean. Based on the observations made over 3 years, scientists concluded the temperatures at the site likely confer reproductive benefits at that, and that the site is used exclusively for reproduction. That's an extreme. 6,000 adults, hatchlings, and eggs were observed at the garden, but no juveniles. So if there are no juveniles, they must go somewhere else to grow up and come back to mate, because why else would the adults be there? Okay, so what statement is supported by the text? That the juveniles go somewhere else. Leave the garden upon reaching an intermediate. Yes, I like A. The population at the octopus garden remains stable despite variations. That may be true, but it's not the point. Nests in the octopus garden contain average fewer. We don't know that. That could be true, but there's nothing in the text that has anything to do with the number of eggs. Provides an ideal feeding ground for the hatchlings. That may be true, but again, the text is saying that it's used as a nesting site, and the fact of the no juveniles was emphasized. So I'm going to go with A on this. Main idea, summarize it, read broadly. Conservationists worldwide are working to protect ecosystems from habitat destruction and biodiversity loss. Fine. And in many cases, initiatives that rely on natural features or processes can help address such challenges. Okay, so they want to rely on the natural geography instead of further damaging it. Great. In response to rapidly dwindling population of blueback salmon, the Quinault Indian Nation, sorry if I pronounced it incorrectly, tribe in Washington State partnered with the conservation organization Wild Salmon Center to restore naturally occurring log jams in the river. The log jams create shady pools, so they make an overall statement about conservation efforts using the natural features, and then they give an example of one. Create shady pools where the blueback salmon can rest and spawn, promoting blueback population. Okay. Main idea, partnership between the nation and Wild Salmon Center shows the importance of collaborative approaches. That's true, but it's not the point. The point is that they're using nature-based approaches. So I kind of like B. Indicated by a recent project, log jams. No. Realize nature-based methods are a little better long-term than methods that are not nature-based. We don't know that. And that may be true, but there's nothing here that says that. Comparison. Always be wary of comparisons. All right, we've got our first command of evidence. We want to support the hypothesis. Always read the question so you know what your target is. Are we supporting or weakening? Skip the data. What is the hypothesis? Saw, however, so I know they're going to be contradicted there. Survey, where's the hypothesis? They got to use the word hypothesis. Or did they not? Is that something they changed? That must be something they changed. All right. These guys present as a participant, study participants with vignettes about fictive political candidates, portraying them as embodying a personality trait widely considered admirable, or considered ignoble, or not admirable. Survey recorded the participants' ratings of candidates. Likability and showed that across participants, ignoble trait candidates were less likable than admirable, obviously. When the researchers factored in participants' own personality trait scores, least ignoble to most ignoble, 1 to 7, they conclude, here's a conclusion, so they used the word conclusion. They concluded this relative ranking of candidates persisted except among participants with high ignobility scores. So if you're a bad guy, you actually like the bad guys. Makes sense. All right. So people who are admirable were always admirable, no matter who you are. But the more ignoble you are, the more you like the ignoble people. Interesting. Obviously, people like to see themselves in text, right? Um, and the less ignoble you are, the less you like ignoble people. The more annoying people are, the more annoying they are to you, if you are not annoying. The strong positive correlation between participants' ignobility score and admirable trait candidates' likability ratings. That's not true. Admirable trait candidates were flat, so that's false. Participants with an ignobility score of 5 or less rated admirable trait candidates as more likable than ignoble trait candidates. Okay. Participants with an ignobility score 6 or more, equally likable or even more likable. That's true. That's just a true description of the data, and it kind of supports the hypothesis. Rated admirable trait candidates is quite likable, and that the rating was not significantly affected. That's true, but it doesn't support the claim about ignobility, because the claim is that participants with high ignobility scores was different. So B is still winning. Unlike participants with an ignobility score of 6, participants with ignobility score either greater or less gave admirable trait. No, that's, even though that's kind of true, it doesn't show the trend. B is the best description of it. It's more precise. In command of evidence, you want that. I'm going to weaken the underlying claim. So let's just read it. Guinea pigs in Puerto Rico probably came from Colombia and descended from Colombian guinea pigs. Okay. So guinea pigs in Puerto Rico came from Colombia and descended from Colombian. All I got to do is show that they came from somewhere else or were introduced somehow else. If I need more, I'll read more. All right. Ancient guinea pigs in Puerto Rico were genetically less similar to ancient guinea pigs in Colombia than ancient guinea pigs in Peru. That does it. Guinea pigs are common in ancient Puerto Rican art, especially in pottery. That does not prove anything. Doesn't prove that they came from one place or another. Modern breeds of guinea pigs don't look like images of guinea pigs, and no, who cares? Depictions of things does not prove genetic or hereditary lines. Guinea pig population of ancient Colombia was much larger. The size of the population has nothing to do with it. So it has to be A. Yeah, we picked A. Genetics. Support the hypothesis. They got to use, there it is, there's the hypothesis. The researchers hypothesized that interactions indicating high levels of cognitive engagement with ad content would result in relatively high levels of ad recall. So if the interaction in an ad required you to think about it, cognitive engagement, then you would remember it better. High levels of ad recall. So how do we support that? Well, give me an ad that requires you to think and then show that people remembered it or prove the opposite. Users who interacted with an ad were much more likely to do so by clicking on the ad's like button. That doesn't show any of the recall stuff. And it's not about likelihood of engagement. It's if you engage, you remember it better. That's the claim. Interacted with an ad were significantly likely to purchase the advertised product at the time they saw the ad than were users who saw the ad but did not interact with it. I kind of like B because recall leads to action usually. Compared with users who clicked on links in the ad, so interacting with it, users who commented on that same ad, so interacting even more, were significantly more likely to remember seeing the ad when surveyed 2 days later. Yeah, it's C for sure. It's about the recall. You remember it better. You interact, the higher degree of interaction, clicking versus commenting. I like C. Users shared an ad were highly likely to remember details from the ad. Those same users tended to forget those details when surveyed a week later. No, that shows, if anything, that's the opposite. We want to support the claim, so I'm going to go C. Another command of evidence. My goodness, this one has the open-ended part, so we do have to read the whole thing. With these, the claim has to be true in the data and support the purpose of the text, so that's why we have to read the paragraph. Students in research, a student is researching rotating radio, whatever. Subclass of pulsar stars characterized by short pulses of radio waves. The time between consecutive pulses of an RRAT is referred to as a period. The student determines that, okay, so that doesn't actually help me. What did they determine? J6143 has the shortest amount of time between consecutive pulses. So, they gave me the definition as period. Consecutive pulses is period. And indeed, that has the shortest period of in the table. Yeah, sure. Dash 3, 545 dash 3, plus 5, 3, have the same amount of time between consecutive pulses. False. The periods are different. 2335, this guy, has the longest amount of time between consecutive pulses. That is false. That's this guy. 10354, 12153 have more than 1 second of time between. No, that's false. So that one, it just seemed like which one's true. All right, whatever. Inference question. Inference questions require us to read the text and complete the thought. By the time you finish reading the text, you should already have an idea of how the thought should be completed, even before reading the answer choices. Narwhals are shy whales that live in a remote Arctic ocean. Some of them have a long tusk, like a unicorn horn, with sensitive nerves. Narwhals are known for this tusk, but many actually don't have one, and its purpose is unknown. One group of scientists came up with a possible purpose in 2014. The scientists suggested the tusk may help narwhals determine when water around them is likely to start freezing and become dangerous for them. Marine biologist, this person, disagrees with this idea. She reasons that if the narwhal tusk serves such an important purpose, then it's most likely that if that served that purpose, then it is most likely that more of them would have the tusk, I guess. If it's that important, why don't all of them have it? Would seek a new habitat. Fewer marine animals would also have tusks. Oh, more would have the tusk. Yeah, exactly. More would have the tusk. If it's that important, why don't they all have it? Is that okay? So this is our first grammar question. We're shifting, and this is going to go a lot faster. We have 10 more questions to go, 11 more questions to go, and we only got 10 minutes, but I'm confident we're going to get them. These are verbs. Subject-verb agreement is determined by number. Plural, singular, plural, plural. The singular one stands out. The vest is the subject. The vest is a wearable washboard. Same thing here. Singular, singular. Oh, these are tense this time. Has been, will be, past participle of some kind. Future, simple, present. Look for the other verbs. Featuring jagged peaks, but like surrounded by hazy swirls of blue-green. Is Chinese landscape painting. Inspired by the tradition of that. A type of Chinese landscape painting characterized by the use. It's not two complete sentences, so I don't want another primary verb here. A type of Chinese, yeah, this is a dependent clause. So that's going to be it. I'm going to look that up later. All right. We got punctuation. The word that hates punctuation. It's usually going to signify some sort of subordinate clause. So we don't put punctuation next to it. I'm drawn to the period and the no punctuation option. Reading the sentences. Scholars dreamed about locating a copy of this legendary lost work. That's a complete sentence. That fantasy partially became reality in 2022 when researchers uncovered its two complete sentences, so it's got to be C. Punctuation again. Semicolon and period are identical. Throw them both out. A dash by itself. There are no other dashes here, so a single dash acts like a colon. We need a complete sentence followed by a description. Let's see if we have it. With a blend of traditional design elements such as arched Gothic ceilings and modern ones. That's all dependent so far. Such as floor-to-ceiling windows. This is all dependent so far. Design splits the difference between old and new. All right, that is transitional design splits the difference between old and new. That is the only independent clause in here. We have a dependent clause and a dependent clause, so I got to go with a comma. Okay, we got different pronouns. This, it, they, these. We got singular. We got plural. Let's see what's going on. When a given industry, water and electricity are two well-known examples, carries high infrastructural startup costs and other barriers that discourage competition. So this is an introductory phrase. This introductory phrase is going to determine which pronoun we use. When a given industry carries high costs, it often consists of just one or two suppliers. Yeah. Transition. There are three sentences here. Famous for its 4-degree tilt, the leaning Garcenda Tower is a popular attraction in Bologna city center. However, measurements taken in 23 showed that the tower was rotating in a concerning way. City officials closed the area, so it's going to be cause and effect as a result. Yeah, it states a concern and then the action taken in response to it. Okay, again, transition. Always read the whole thing. Guard cells are specialized cells that are part of a plant's pores. These cells help regulate the amount of carbon dioxide a plant takes in. They help regulate the plant's water loss. So this is another action that these things do. This is task 1 of a guard cell, task 2. So additionally, transition again. Marcel Duchamp intended his 1970 so-called ready-made sculpture fountain. It's a damn urinal turned on its side. Go look it up. To challenge then prevailing conceptions about the nature of art. Duchamp's fountain did just that. It's an affirmation, confirmation of the previous claim. Going to go with indeed. Okay. We got 5 minutes, and we're nearly done. Yeah. The model developed by astrophysicist Catherine Zucker and her research team developed that the same supernovas responsible for, or revealed that the same supernovas responsible for creation of and ongoing expansion of the local bubble, a 14 million year old cavity in the Milky Way, are likely responsible for the formation of new stars. This model detailed how the bubble's expansion trapped interstellar clouds of gas. Hey, 5-minute warning. And the dust that became stars upon their eventual collapse. Okay. So it's not cause and effect. It's not contrast. The same ones responsible for this bubble are also responsible for new stars. This model detailed. I would go with specifically. It's a clarification, kind of. All right. For these rhetorical synthesis questions, I usually just read the question very carefully. But a friend of mine warned me that you actually have to check the answers now. You have to check to see if they're true. Contrast the song Poor Miner's Farewell with the song Bring Him Back Home. So just do that. Contrast them. Poor Miner's Farewell and Bring Him both raised awareness. That's a similarity, not a contrast. While both are protest songs, Poor Miner's Farewell is about coal miners, is about the anti-apartheid leader Nelson Mandela. Yeah, that's a contrast. Oh, that doesn't give me a contrast. It was a protest song against the unlivable wages, and that doesn't give me a contrast either. It's got to be B. Student wants to present the conclusion. So present the conclusion. All right, cool. Tibetan wolves can withstand hypoxic conditions. That could be it. Both Tibetan mass have mutations in their things. Prevent hemoglobin. Okay, any of these could be a conclusion. What is the conclusion? They have the same mutations. They determined, here we go. They determined that enable dogs to withstand these mutations enable dogs to withstand the low oxygen conditions. They acquired the mutations by interbreeding. Okay, it's either that or that is the conclusion. So I'm kind of liking, I don't know if I like A, addition preventing excess hemoglobin production and mutation, interbreeding with Tibetan wolves to acquired the genetic mutation. I kind of like D. That's a tough one. All right, last one. Let me explain it. I'm not going to pick A because that's just an observation. It's not a conclusion of the study. We knew this. Mastiffs and Tibetan wolves have mutations which present excess hemoglobin production. That is an observation that they have. They noted this. The determination, the word determined makes me think that this is supposed to be the conclusion. So that's why I'm picking it. Compare some disadvantages of docked and dockless bike share programs. So disadvantages. Dockless programs can be disorganized. Docked programs, on the other hand, offer order and can know. Disadvantages. Worth noting is that while docked programs are relatively easy and expensive, they're less flexible. No. Docked programs are more resource intensive than dockless, but they avoid some of the latter's organizational challenges. That has the contrast of their disadvantages. The dockless programs offer flexibility. Docked bike, that's their advantages, not disadvantages. Yeah, and that's the last question. Didn't leave any blank. Let's go into the second module. Whew. All right. Same as before, same strategies. Let's keep going. I'm going to go right into it because I know I'm going to run out of time if I don't. At the turn of the 20th century, black residents of Richmond, Virginia had few formal options for banking and other financial services. To fix this situation, to rectify, the creation of Lottie Reiniger's 1926 animated The Adventures of Prince Ahmed was something. This is going to describe the type of process. Over the course of 3 years, and her collaborators painstakingly made 250 individual images, hand-cut paper silhouettes, repeatedly. So it's hard, it's difficult, arduous. Diadromas of fish migrate between freshwater and marine biomes during their life cycle. Migration obligate nature is why diadromas fish can be what? Those that are merely highly able to tolerate high salinity. Okay. Black chin tilapia can survive high salinity, but its life cycle does not involve relocation to a different biome, as does the diadromas wild salmon. Okay. So they migrate between freshwater and saltwater. Demarcated, I'm going to let the answer choices help me out on this one because the answer is not obvious reading the text. Not conflated with. We're not going to confuse these things because they are significantly different. And I believe that is what the answer is wanting us to do. So we're going to be demarcated. They can be distinguished between. And I may be wrong on this, but I'm sure it's not the others because derived from means to be like drawn from. Reconstituted as is like we're recreating it. That's kind of weird. One popular theory of the origin of the moon, the Big Whack, causes the protoplanet called Theia collided with Earth, flinging debris into orbit and eventually coalesced in the moon. All these are true, by the way. All these are like real theories. So these are like really cool things to learn and know. It's like Jeopardy knowledge. Until recently, Theia was a theory, probably. But researcher Quiyan and colleagues now claim to have identified pieces of the protoplanet in the lowermost section of Earth's mantle, Cool. So it was, oh, it's either that or that. Veritable is like verified. Desultory, I'm not clear on the definition, but I know it's not that. Spurious is like really doubtful, and notional is just like just a notion, just an idea. I don't get any implications here that this was like a doubtful theory, so I'm gonna go with notional. Tricky one. All right, text structure and purpose again. Poem, the speaker is on a path in an outdoor setting. Cool. A slight wind shakes the seed pods. My thoughts are spent as the black seeds. My thoughts tear me. So the wind is his thoughts. It's a metaphor. I dread their fever. I am scattered in its world. I am scattered like the hot shriveled seeds. Illustrates a change in the natural environment that the speaker implies is responsible for the growing misgivings described in the text. I don't see any growing misgivings. Maybe. It establishes an example of consistency in natural landscape that the speaker then contrasts unpredictability. No. Presents an observation of the occurrence in the natural world that the speaker then expands on to convey a sense of turbulent interior state. I kind of like that one. Evokes ordinariness of an event that nature to suggest that the critical self-evaluation is common. No. Yeah, they're expanding on the wind. The wind shakes the seed pods much like my mind shakes my thoughts. That's the point. Function of the underlined sentence. Okay. Bayeux tapestry from the 11th century France depicts 75 scenes over 250 feet of fabric. Again, look this one up. This is cool. It was likely produced by workers embroidering in sections and then joining the resulting panels together. It's plausible the workshop that produced the tapestry had never produced one so large, and some research claimed that a close examination of the joins, the places where the panels are stitched together, suggests the workers developed and refined their joining process over the course of production. So they got better at it the longer they made this thing. For example, the first join the workers completed exhibits a clear misalignment of the borders, the two panels, whereas the later joins are virtually invisible. So this sentence reiterates the claim and gives evidence for the claim that's made earlier. It does not identify the people and the events depicted. Supports the argument about the workers, yes. Compares the tapestry with others, no. Describes how they determined where it was produced, no. It was made in Bayeux. That's where the factory was. Or not factory, but probably where they found it. But anyway, Thomas Mann's novel, translated whatever, who cares? What do they suggest about the story of Hans Castorp? So pay attention to the characterization of that as we read. The story of Hans Castorp, and that we intend to tell here, not for his sake, for the reader will come to know him as a perfectly ordinary if engaging young man, but for the sake of the story itself, which seems to us to be very much worth telling. So it's a story worth telling, although in Hans Castorp's favor, it should be noted that it is his story, and not every story happens to be to everybody. Is a story that took place long ago and is, so to speak, covered in the patina of history and must necessarily be told with verbs whose tense is that of the past. So it's a story that's old, it belongs to this guy and nobody else, and it is worth telling. It is true that stories of even the most uninteresting people are themselves interesting because all people are unique. The reason the story is interesting is nonetheless difficult to understand because of the passage of time. No. The difficult to understand part is the thing that breaks it for me. Even though it is a story of no particular importance, sure, its age and the manner in which it is therefore must be told are both indicators that the story itself is important. Yeah, yeah, I kind of like that. Like all stories about the lives of inconsequential people, this story must necessarily be related in a particular way if the reason the story is consequential is to be made evident to the audience. Ooh, I like that one better. Not every story happened. Everybody is a story that took place long ago, and so to speak, must necessarily be told with the verbs, the past tense, the deep. Is a remarkable story that happened to an unremarkable person, though one could plausibly argue that the story is valuable. Some of value. No. Um, hmm. Necessarily written in a particular way if the reason the story is consequential is to be made evident. We will come to know him as perfectly ordinary if engaging, although even though the story of a person of no particular age and manner, they're uh, told are both indicators that the story itself is important. I think C is probably the better option. The reason I'm eliminating B is because the B is implying that the way it's told is giving it the importance, but that's not clear to me in the text right now. Oh, I'm gonna run out of time. Early Earth is thought to have been characterized. Support the conclusion. Support. Okay. It dated it to there. All right. Early Earth is thought to have been characterized as a stagnant lid tectonic regime in which the upper lithosphere was essentially immobile and there was no interaction between the lithosphere and the underlying mantle. Research investigated a time of transition from the stagnant lid regime to a tectonic plate regime in which the lithosphere is fractured into dynamic plates that in turn allow lithospheric and mantle material to mix. Examining the chemical data from lithospheric and mantle-derived rocks ranging from 285 to 3.8 billion years old, it dated the transition to 3.2 billion years ago. So evidence for that would be a rock that is 3.2 billion years old. Among rocks known to be older than that, significantly more mantle-derived than lithospheric. But the opposite is true for rocks younger. I kind of like that one. Uh, outer rocky is, yeah. Yeah, if there was no interaction, then the older rocks would be from the crust. Mantle-derived rocks, older than, show significantly more compositional diversity. Who cares? Positive correlation between age of lithospheric rocks and the chemical similarity to mantle-derived rocks. And the correlation increases significantly in strength. No. Mantle-derived rocks younger than 3.2 billion contain some materials not found in older mantle-derived rocks, but is found in older Epeiraneous lithospheric rocks. No. Ooh. Hmm. Okay, that actually is good support. Mantle-derived rock stuff in the inside of the Earth, younger than 3.2 billion years, contain material that is not found in the older mantle rocks, but it is found in the lithosphere rock, the old lithospheric rocks. So I'm torn. Yeah, no, I'm gonna go with that because it's about the materials mixing. Support this hypothesis. Almost all works of fiction contain references to progression of time, including a time of day in which evidence since started to take place. 2020 study claimed that an observable pattern in such reference reflects a shift in human behavior prompted by a spread of electric lighting in the late 19th century. Researchers drew this conclusion from an analysis of 50,000 novels spanning many centuries and cultures using software to recognize and tally both specific time references and implied ones, such as meals typically served at time of day. So their claim is a shift in human behavior because of electric light. Novel published after the year 1800 included clock phrase 10 a.m. less often than novels published before 1800. No. Novels published after 1880 contain significantly more reference to activity occurring after 10 p.m. Yes, because after 10 p.m. you would need some light. Novels published in the 19th century implied time reference steadily more common. No. Time reference of noon and midnight are used with roughly the same frequency. No. Another one of these. Complete the phrase, so you got to read the whole thing. Study verb and the meta-analysis 300. Strongly influenced by urban population growth, GDP per capita. Measure economic activity because efficient national government is necessary to provide urban services and infrastructure. Yes. That attract economic investment. Not at all proposed that absent other factors, the importance of GDP per capita growth, ULE, would likely increase relative to importance of population growth. Governments become more efficient. So the importance of GDP growth to ULE would increase relative to the importance of population growth. True, this suggests the possibility that what? So we have population growth and GDP. So this is region 1 and 2 over time. It looks like urban population growth went up in region 1, but GDP went down. And here population went down, but GDP went up. Okay. National governments of countries in region 1 experienced declines in efficiency. In the period from 2000 to 2014 relative to the perhaps, yeah, the ratio didn't stay the same. Countries in region 1 experienced a slower rate of economic growth in a period. Slower economic growth by increasing national government efficiency. So urban land expansion was most strongly influenced by population growth. Provide urban services. Suppose that GDP growth decrease relative to the importance of population growth. So as governments become more efficient, GDP should go up. But population doesn't necessarily. Okay. Experienced growth by increasing national government efficiency. Yeah, I kind of like B. The government here got less efficient, is the implication. To become more efficient in the period. I think I'm not understanding this one. I'm just going to go on to the next. Support the student's assertion. These are tough. These are hard. I'm going to need more time to think about them. So I'm going to go ahead and skip the command of evidence question and the inference questions and do the grammar and come back to those. All right, know your punctuation rules. Her portrait of novelist Zadie Smith is displayed, no comma in front of the verb. The government body officially known as all thing. The first word should be the government body. License Parliament. Items, punctuation marks, throw these two away because they're identical. These include overseeing the Library of Congress collections, which boast more than 162 million items. These include overseeing the Library of Congress collections, which boast more than 162 million items. Managing the copyright. Oh, it's a semicolon because it's a list. Complex list, semicolon with and, complex list. All right, do the dummy check here. No. So you can throw these two away. Check here. Recently unearthed. Where's the? Okay, it's one big sentence. All right. Recently unearthed new tools in France attributed to Homo sapiens may provide evidence that interactions between Neanderthals and modern humans occurred 10,000 years earlier than was previously supposed. A finding that, if true, would overturn. Yeah, comma. All right, the classic semicolon with the transition word. The implication here is that there are two or three sentences, and we got to connect them with the contrast correctly. Primarily uses a suite of software tools to create illustrations for children's books, manifest the warm and welcoming atmospheres that are a signature of her work. She occasionally relies, I like though, she uses software. We're going to contrast. This is one sentence. There aren't three sentences, there's just one, so these two are wrong just on their face. Because if I just stop here, that's not a complete sentence. Yeah. Almost the same, yeah, it's exactly the same thing. Chondrites are stunning meteorites that are undifferentiated, that is, their contents have not melted and separated into distinct layers. They are hardly pristine, though. This contrasts the previous. And then this clarifies how they're not pristine. So it's three sentences, one, two, three. Two contrasts with one. And the semicolon after the though indicates that. Semicolon again. Colon, I like colon in this case. The geographic center of North America lay in the state of North Dakota was conceded by all involved. Establishing its price coordinates proved more divisive. Yeah. Ooh. Ooh. Two complete sentences. Both of these are acceptable. This is not a clarification of that, so I'm going to go with the semicolon. That's weird. Transition. The cultivation, trade, and transportation of maize and wheat reconfigured the continent's existing regional food. Following the American Revolutionary War, North American foodways underwent a radical transformation, fueled in large part by spiking consumer demand for certain grains. Cultivation, trade, and transportation of maize and wheat, for example, in particular. Yeah. Read the text. When printing paper money for the colony of Pennsylvania, 1730s, Benjamin Franklin, the Philadelphia shop owner, took steps to combat the circulation of counterfeit notes, such as weaving blue threads and muscovite, a selective mineral, into the paper he used. Okay. He stamped the notes with detailed imprints. And moreover, it's an additional way that he tried to prevent counterfeiting. Sage leaves that proved difficult for workers to replicate. Identify what type of scientist Chowdhury is. No, no, no. Yes. That one's silly. Uh, that's an acknowledgement that the earlier questions take too much time. All right. The test maker is giving us a little bonus there. I'd indicate the year Yosemite's Falls was completed. Okay. What? Just double check if it's accurate. All right. Overview of the study's finding. This is the method. Vietnamese 16th fastest SR. Wanted to determine 17 languages that convey both information and syllables. The calculus. This is method. This is a finding. These are findings. Okay. That's what they did. Information conveyed more quickly in Spanish than in Vietnamese. That's a finding. 16th fastest syllable rate. Lower than that of Spanish, which had the second fastest. Our Spanish is lower. Some of the languages differed in number of syllables spoken. No, it's either B or C. Information conveyed much more quickly in Spanish. The rate at which 17 languages convey both information and syllables. Syllable rate. Yeah, this has both information and syllables in it, so I'm going to go with that one. Place Einstein's argument within the historical context. Down with quantum theory, Einstein maintained the. So that gives me the context a little bit. All the Bohr's interpretation of why now. So a conference on physics disagreed with Bohr's argument. Among the prominent scientists, no. Famous debate, no. Place Einstein's argument in that context. Yeah, I think we need to include the conference. And this is more precise. So I'm going to go with that one. All right, let's go back to these 2 minutes per question. All right. Let's just quickly throw something down. And make sure that we're not going to run out of time here. All right. This is the one that I couldn't figure out. All right. I would need more time for sure. I'm old. Student researching Chinese government 1992 shift back to a market economy and emphasize the trade liberalization. Fine. One means of trade liberalization involves expanding from ordinary imports to emphasis on processing imports, which have two types, ordinary versus processing. With assembly, in which a firm obtains raw materials and then puts them together, and processing with inputs, spends capital to buy raw materials from trading partner, processes them into final goods, and sells the goods. Obtains raw materials for and trading without payment and sells them to that partner, charging only for the assembly. Got it. So we assemble and then only charge you for the assembly. We buy the materials and charge you for the finished good. Got it. All right. The student asserts that while initial efforts at trade liberalization were shaped by Chinese firms' limited capital, the situation resolved during the 2000s. I want to support the claim that it resolved during the 2000s. So over time, ordinary inputs increased. Everything has gone up. Processing with assembly, processing with inputs. Everything's gone up. Some faster than others. Initial efforts at trade liberalization were shaped by Chinese firms' limited capital. That limited capital got resolved. Chooses. Expanding from ordinary imports into emphasis on processing imports. Okay. So we want to show that these increased. We don't really care about this increasing as well. Huh. Processing imports with inputs greater than both ordinary inputs. Processing with 2006. Okay, no, that's not true even. 2000, 2006 processing imports with inputs rose much more sharply. Processing imports with assembly did. True. Neither processing imports with inputs nor processing imports with assembly were greater than ordinary. True. Imports with assembly were greater than in 2006. No, I think B is our best guy there. Okay. Aztecian language family is divided in northern branch, which includes the Shoshone language of present-day Idaho and Utah. And the southern one, whose best-known representative is Nahuatl, the language of the Aztec Empire in Mexico. Lexical similarities across the family, including botanical terms, confirm descent from a single language spoken millennia ago. And the family's geographical distribution suggests an origin what is now the U.S. Southwest. Fine. Vocabulary pertaining to maize isn't shared between northern and southern branches, despite the crop's universal cultivation among Uto Aztecan tribes. Given archaeological evidence that maize originated in Mexico and diffused northward into what became the U.S. Southwest, some linguists reason that what? So what's the primary contrast here? These things are a family tree of languages. There are similarities of the botanical uh, terms rather. The vocabulary pertaining to maize is not shared, though, even though it was grown between the two. Maize originated in Mexico and diffused northward. Some linguists reason that what? They probably had a name for it before the languages mixed. That's the natural conclusion. Obtained a crop directly from a southern tribe rather than non-tribe. Maize-related vocabulary within each branch likely reflects regionally specific methods. Acquired maize at roughly the same time, though from different sources, maybe. Northern and southern branches likely preceded the acquisition of the crop. I kind of like D. They received the crop before they divided. Or they would have the same word for it then, wouldn't they? They got it from different sources. Yeah. Same kind of idea like with chai and tea. Chai is the same thing as tea, and means tea in certain languages, but it was acquired through different pathways, so they call it different things. 1974 work, Instant Mural, the Chicano art. Taped members. Outdoor wall in East Los Angeles. The work is manifestly a commentary on constraint, but many critics focus on Valdez, social constraints women faced at the time. Which is understandable, but leaves the presence of Valdez's male collaborator unexplained. We should instead consider that in 1974, the art establishment recognition of Chicano artists was, and has long been, restricted to socio-historical muralists, leaving non-muralist Chicano artists, like ASCO's members, struggling to even exhibit their work. Attending to this context opens an interpretation that accounts for all the evidence, allowing us to conclude that. So the idea is that we have to situate non-muralists in the Chicano movement of the 70s and consider not just the constraints of women. The work is a commentary on constraint. Many critics focus on the women constraints that women faced at the time, but then how do we explain the man? All right. And represents the social constraints placed on women at the time. Sandoval's presence represents Chicano muralists' frustration at the lack of recognition, maybe. Main subject is female, artist's experience of being doubly constrained by gender role expectations, maybe. Reflection on the constraining aesthetic expectations placed in Chicano artists in general, rather than social constraints. I kind of like that. Best understood not as a critique of social constraints placed on women, but rather as a critique of social historical muralist depictions of Chicano culture. No, not Chicano culture. It's mostly about Chicano artists. Analysis. Place coin minted sit on in the 5th and 4th centuries BC reveals change in the composition over time. Coin from there is not changes, okay. Because coins with a silver content below 80% were widely considered to use unsuitable for trade. These guys speculate that a crisis, confidence in currency occurred in Sudan this year, likely relieved despite Sudan's present financial obligations as a result of this guy's successor decision to increase it. Consists of the coins minted, but decreased their weight, proclaimed the percentage. Raised. Heavier coins. So, okay, I'm glad I changed that. I think A and B were incorrect. We're going to go ahead and skip the math and see how I did here. I will do the math later. But we're going to go ahead and check my work. Whew. I'm always a little winded when I do that. I don't want to encourage you guys to talk through your tests. I knew I was going to run out of time because Module 2 is always harder, and I usually run out of time if I'm talking through it. So let's click on View My Score. Let's miss that. It opened up another window for me here, which I will share on the screen shortly. Logged in. All right. I encourage you guys to go back and pause, of course, if you didn't as you were going along. All right, score details. Let's get this up on the screen. Okay, there we go. Score details. So obviously I have a lot of errors because I skipped the math. But let's see. Oh, reading and writing, I missed one. Okay, good so far. Yep. Missed 4 total. 5. What? 7? I thought those were so easy. Let's review these. Correct answer D. All 17 conveyed at roughly the same rate. Broader is better is a principle that I have espoused in the past. Let's see. D is the answer. Sentence presents an overview of the, yeah, they wanted an overview, so broader is better. All the principles. And then best answer is A. Yeah, historical context, broader is better, same kind of principle here. Yeah, all right, fine. This is having trouble loading. Go back here. B. Yeah, this is, oh, it was B. All right, this is the one I ran out of time on. Persistent depressive financial obligations, a result of this decision. Okay, so the issue here was the composition and purity of the metals. Same amount of silver in the coins consistent with that, minted in 367, but decreased the weight. Oh, okay. Yeah, so that would increase the composition to more pure. Okay, that would make sense. Is at the same time, so they said D. Okay. Yeah, that one, I was tempted for that one too. Division in northern and southern branches preceded the acquisition of the crop. Oh, yeah. Okay. Um, if they broke apart and didn't have a word for it and then they acquired the crop independently, then they would come up with their own word for it. This one didn't make any sense to me. Study of urban physical expansion. Conducted meta-analysis of more than 300 cities worldwide. Let's zoom in on this for you. Yourself out of the way. 300 cities worldwide. Determine whether urban land expansion, ULE, it's the gray, no, not the gray bars. ULE is the percent of ULE. Okay, so urban land expansion due to population and urban land expansion due to GDP. Okay. Measure of unit. Because efficient national government is necessary to provide urban services and infrastructure, they propose that in the absence of anything else, GDP would increase, the importance of GDP relative to ULE would increase relative to the population as they become more efficient. as they become more efficient. What does that have to do with anything? As they become more efficient, let's invert the claim. As they become more efficient, GDP should go up with population. They don't make any claims about urban land expansion. Oh, no. No, they don't make any claims about urban population growth. Urban population growth isn't even on the. Oh, no. What? What is going on with this? Percentage of ULE attributed to population growth and GDP. Okay. Population growth is not part of the claim relative to the importance of population growth. Oh, no, it is part of the claim. As the governments become more efficient, they would increase relative to the importance. Okay, so GDP will outpace population growth. That's the claim. Got it. Got it. Got it. Got it. That's mind-bendingly hard. As the government gets more efficient, GDP will outpace population growth in importance. Got it. Governments of Region 1 experience declines in efficiency. Okay, we can tell that because in Region 1, population outpaced GDP. And that's why the answer is A. Damn, that is hard. All right, that's that one. What did I mess up here? Oh, this one. This one was tough too. Hans Kestorp. Hit it. Oh, say. I selected C. Yeah. That we intend to tell. What did I think it was? Not for his sake. Reader will come to know is perfectly ordinary and engaging. For the sake of the story itself, which seems to be us very much worth telling. It is a story that took place long ago and is, so to speak, covered in patina history and must be told with historical verbs. Though it is true that stories of even the most uninteresting people are themselves interesting because all people are unique. Interesting it is nonetheless difficult to understand because no, it's not about difficulty to understand, so I don't like A. Even the story of a person of no particular importance, its age and manner in which it therefore must be told. Yeah, I had same reason I want to eliminate B because the way it's told does not give it its importance. So it must be D if it's not C. Yeah. Why is it not C? This story must be necessarily related in a particular way if the reason the story is consequential, it's to be made evident. No, they don't make that qualification. That claim, that part of the claim is not supported by the text. Happen to an owner of a person that one could probably argue. Yeah, okay, all parts of this are supported. Some of its value accrues to the person at its center. Story, although yeah, there it is. It is in his favor. Yeah. Okay. That. Can't believe I missed rhetorical synthesis questions. Zoom out. Can I? Well, did that one. The only one I missed in module 1. And I cannot believe how hard module 2 was. Absolutely wild. Broader is better. All right. Hopefully you guys learned something today. I certainly did. Slow down, read in your head, summarize the text as you read, and anticipate the answer choices. My score report's saying that I need to work on my expression of ideas. The score that I got, I don't think I mentioned. So 720 on this attempt for the reading and writing. And test 6 was 790, 780 in the math, 760 in reading. There's my 800. Um, that's me just playing with the scores. 800, 780. This was me actually trying last year. When did I do those? January 2023. All right. So, uh, not bad. 720. How many errors did we get? And that was 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 errors. 7 errors for 720. That's right on curve, I think. So that's probably what we can expect to see as the standard difficulty. Put your comments in the doobly-doo down below. Questions, thumbs up, you know what to do. Thanks for watching, everybody.